Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2017 Lexus RX350. Up front is a 3.5 liter V6, and down below is an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this RX350 for two reasons. First of all, I've been driving a lot of RXs recently, if you couldn't tell, and so this is a different generation than the other two that I've recently posted. I also think that this is a really good car. It's decently well spec'd. It's quote-unquote base model plus luxury, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. It has a lot of options, but also it has that 3.5 liter V6 under the hood that we love to see. So if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form, and you would get a video of your vehicle, just like the one you're watching now of this RX350. And if you would like to support the channel and get all of my reviews weeks or months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 3.5 liter V6 under the hood, better known as the 2GR FKS. Well, it's a really reliable engine. Lexus builds reliable engines, that's no question, but the 3.5 liter might be the top tier when it comes to the most reliable. They used it in so many different vehicles, and it was shared with Toyota, but also used in vehicles like the Lotus Evora. So it has some chops to it. It's actually a really, really good engine, and that's going to be a solid talking point towards the end of the video. Like I said, paired to it is an 8-speed automatic. I like it. It shifts, it does the job, and I don't have any complaints. It doesn't barge into the conversation when it needs to do its thing, and some transmissions do. So it's really nice to see that it keeps its own quiet corner. Last but not least, the RX350 is all-wheel drive, and we'll talk about some interesting selections we have with that. How does it feel to drive the RX350? Well, as I mentioned, with every generation, the RX got bigger and bigger and bigger, and this is the first generation where you start to really feel how big it is. So much so that the owner actually doesn't like that side of it, and he's looking to possibly downsize. Now, it is still a two-row SUV, but it might be something to keep in mind, especially because towards this era, we started to see the Lexus NX, which was now the slightly smaller generation that more mimics the earlier RX series. Visibility is fine, ride quality is great, comfort is off the charts, and the steering is nice and light, throttle is unaggressive, so it's a nice driving experience. It's just getting a little big. And if you wanted it even bigger, you could find the RXL in this generation, which was a 3-row Lexus RX that they only made for a short amount of time. I reviewed one back in 2019, and I had no idea that I was driving something actually really rare. So with that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges and a screen. Off to the left is my coolant temperature and tachometer. Off to the right is my speedometer and fuel. And in the center, I get that little digital screen that I can swap around and get more information out of. On the steering wheel on the left, we have our volume, skip track, mode, and phone options, and off to the right, we have our selectors for that gauge cluster screen, as well as our lane departure warning and pre-collision alert. This is also the first place you'll notice that the steering wheel actually isn't black, it's brown. It's this nice cocoa brown, which I actually really like, and you'll find in the rest of the interior, like you will off to the left with the climate control vent. How's that for a segue? Auto high beams, rear tailgate release, head-up display, heated steering wheel, and my camera view button. Moving out of the door, we have 3 levels of memory seats, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Moving into the center, we get our large infotainment display. I really, really like this, although the system itself is starting to show its age a little bit, just because cars have progressed so quickly beyond this system. I like it, however, I don't love how you control it, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Down below, we have 2 climate vents and an analog clock. Something that's missing from the modern RX is a nice analog clock, but you get it here in 2017. We also have the hazard switch, CD player, and climate controls. The climate controls are physical. Absolutely love that, because again, they've taken that away for the new generation. And we have dual zone climate, fan speed, auto, all the fixins that you'd want, but again, I get to touch it with my fingers, and if I have a glove on, it doesn't hinder my temperature. Off to the right, we do have a 12-volt outlet that the owner has put a USB-A plug into, as well as our auto holding brake, power parking brake, automatic heated and ventilated seats, which you can also set to auto, and they will mimic the climate control. The shifter off to the left, this is the old Lexus style jigsaw shifter, which they've since moved away from, but I never had a problem with. And cup holders off to the right, we'll do a big friggin' bottle test. It doesn't really fit all that snugly. It will go in about an inch, but it's not enough to keep the bottle in if I were to take a corner. So unfortunately, the RX350 fails, but it's close. You know, at least that's something. Then we have the selectors for the center screen. This is it's not a trackpad, but it's not a joystick. I guess it's closest to a joystick. Gotta move it around. It's real annoying to use. There's no consistency in the feel. It's hard to get emotion on the stick to translate to the screen properly. It messes with your head. No device has ever used this ever. At least the trackpad in their other vehicles, at least like laptops, use a similar thing. This, I mean, maybe the Atari, but that's about it. Off to the right, we do have our drive mode select for Eco, Normal, and Sport, and then we have a center locking diff, which is very interesting, and our traction control. We do get a center console as well, and the seats. The seats are heated, ventilated, power, and memory, and finished in leather. They have held up really nice. They are very comfortable, and I enjoy putting my tuchus in them. However, speaking of seats, although this is the standard RX, so we only have 2 rows of seats, let's go do a backseat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2017 Lexus RX350, and a couple of things to note. First of all, knee room great, headroom great. This is a bigger chassis than the outgoing RX, so I have more room, where the previous generations of the RX, I kind of felt a little cramped. But we do have 2 climate vents, 12-volt outlet, we have speakers in the doors, we have sunshades, we have openable cup holders, bada bing, bada boom. It's just a nice place to be. I fit back here, I'm 5'11", I'm not a small guy, and I fit back here pretty well. I'm not squeezed for space, which can't be said, again, like in the older RX generation. So this is very, very nice to see. This is where that big driving feel starts to pay off a little bit. But on the other side, you know, if you don't have a huge family, if you're not driving people around all the time, maybe you might want something a little bit smaller. That's up to you. But like I said, you could get the even longer Lexus RX350L. Look for the L in the name, and that will mean that it has the 3rd row. We don't have that here today, but I do have a review of that, although I did that review a very long time ago, so I apologize for how terrible the review is. But let's get into the back and talk about some cargo space. Right around the back of the Lexus RX350 from 2017, button here, we do have a power tailgate, which is very, very nice. Once we are back here, we do have a pretty nice privacy cover. Love to see that. Super, super helpful. We also do have buttons here to put down the 2nd row. We have a giant speaker and a 12-volt outlet tucked up there in the corner. We get this nice Lexus floor mat as well. Not often do you see 2 different colors in the floor mats. Very, very nice. We can come all the way under here, and we do get our spare tire and other goodies. So very nice to see all of that storage space around the back of the RX350. Hit it once for the power tailgate down, but hit it twice and it would lock it. However, the vehicle's on, so it won't let me do that. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I think that this is aged really well. However, I do want to say that the owner has put the facelift front grille on, so this does look a little bit newer than 2017. Here's the stock image of a standard 2017. So you can get kind of an idea. He liked this grille look better, and I have to side with him on that. However, it's not the original. But the overall look of the RX350, we'll do a walk around here. I think it looks presentable. I think it's aged really well, and it's so very clearly identifiable as an RX350. Even the modern gen, even the 1st gen, they all have this distinctive RX look to them, which can't be said across the automotive market. Look at the 2 generations of Hyundai Santa Fe. You wouldn't even think that they were on the same planet, but they were. Well, the RX series, they have a very distinct look to them, which I've always liked. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts, and let me sound like a broken drum. Is that the word? Or is it a different instrument? A broken clock? Right twice a day? Whatever. Older was better. I like this car better than the modern RX. Now, I have reviews of the modern RX on my channel. I have a review of every generation of the RX here on my channel. I like them all to a point, but this is just better for several reasons. First of all, under the hood, that 3.5 liter V6 is going to be reliable. We know it's reliable, where the modern RX350 has swapped to a 2.4 liter turbo, which is a good engine. I like it, but I don't know how reliable it's going to be. And my bet would be less than the 3.5 V6 if I were a betting man. But I gave that up many moons ago. The other reason I like it is the climate controls. They're physical. I can touch them with my finger and they don't move around or go away. I also think, really genuinely, this interior feels nicer. One big problem with the modern interior is that they prioritize the giant screen, which seems high tech, but at the end of the day, there's less personality, there's less flair. In here, I get that luscious cocoa brown leather interior. I get different shapes and movements and emotions. And I get an analog clock. And at the end of the day, am I driving down the street checking the time with the analog clock? No, it takes too much time and my eye's off the road for too long and I have to do mental math and I don't like it. But I like the idea of it. I like having it because it is that just little inch more of luxury. When the digital wristwatch came out, everyone thought that it was over for Rolex and over for all of these legacy watch brands. But they haven't gone away. The reason for that is there's an art to the intricacies. Maybe they're a little bit harder to read and they're not for everyone, and by and large, most places now have digital clocks, but there's something nice and classy about having those two smooth moving hands. I mean, I don't want to talk too long about just the clock, but it's more than just a clock. It's a whole ethos within this interior. And so the crux of it might be the clock, but it carries throughout. This just feels nicer. It just feels nicer. And that's it. Maybe new isn't better, but what I can tell you right now is that this is good. This is very good. And if you're contemplating buying this generation or the next, I would usher you towards this. Oh, and one more thing. The door handles aren't buttons. They're handles. I don't know why Lexus moved away from it, but it has handles. Huge thank you to Kevin for letting me borrow his RX350 for today's video. Kevin has been absolutely wonderful to work with. I also reviewed his Honda Odyssey Elite today that you'll probably see on the channel at some point later on. He's been great. I appreciate him being a gracious host on this bitter cold morning. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.